Welcome to class, where we're discussing learning. Now, learning can be a confusing phenomenon because there's lots of examples of things that don't seem to hang together. But I have a rule for you that will help you understand how they all hang together, and it has to do with prediction. First, let's look at a couple of phenomena. Everybody knows about classical conditioning. That's where Pavlov rings the bell and the dog salivates, because Pavlov had previously paired the ringing of that bell with the delivery of meat. In this terminology, the bell is called the conditioned stimulus because it's something that the animal will learn about. The meat is called the unconditioned stimulus because it produces the salivation anyway. The conditioned response is something the animal comes to do, that is, salivate to the bell. And the unconditioned response is what the animal does anyway, salivate to the meat powder when the unconditioned stimulus is presented. So the trick is to pair the bell with the meat and let the response of salivation transfer to the bell. Why does it do that? And what kinds of other types of conditioning are there?
Now, the textbook doesn't really talk about this, but there are various ways that you can put together the conditioned stimulus, labeled here as CS, the bell, and the unconditioned stimulus, labeled here as UCS, the meat powder, in order to produce the learning. In the top one, we call that delayed conditioning because the conditioned stimulus comes on, and the bell rings for a while, the meat powder begins, then the bell goes off, and the meat is eventually consumed. In the second one, it's called the trace, because the bell comes on and goes off, and shortly thereafter, the meat or meat powder is delivered. This kind of learning can depend on how long the delay is between the CS and the US, how strong, how many trials it takes. At the bottom, they occur simultaneously, and there's really not much learning that happens here. Why is this?
So I have one word solution for you here, and it's in the title of the video, and that is prediction. It looks like we're built to try to see what goes with what. If a stimulus occurs and something else occurs right after it, we tend to connect the two. And that's what Pavlov's dogs were doing. It makes a lot of sense because the world is full of events and we need to know what goes with what. To summarize, go back and look at the trace versus delay, etc., classical conditioning arrangements, and you will see that the concept of prediction explains the strength of learning. Now, with that in mind, let's go on to the next clip and look at operant conditioning.